So lovely to gather again, to have this be our tuning fork for the day or perhaps for the week, especially in a world that seems so rapidly shifting and changing right underneath our feet. So contemplating this week, contemplating two events on opposite sides of the world, the fire in Los Angeles and the earthquake in Tibet. We just see the impermanence and precarious nature of our experience in the world, our planet, our conditions. They're changing and often unexpectedly changing in ways that are frightening and difficult. Similarly, our bodies, so fragile and vulnerable, are always changing. And in this constancy of change, reflected in our mental state is a continuous restlessness arising from discomfort, dissatisfaction, and a desperation for the change to stop, for there to be some security that we can hold on to. So this restlessness seems like a ping pong ball going back and forth between hope and fear, whether it's about our bodies, whether it's about our circumstances, or about our planet. Here, in this very short 60 minutes every Sunday, we turn our minds to meditation. We turn our minds to the Dharma. It is a process and a well-worn path. It reveals the wisdom within that is unchanging, our innate peace, and allows our inner joy to arise. As this confused mind clarifies, the very confusion gives rise to wisdom, as we note in the wonderful prayer by Khenmo that we recite. This week, particularly the fires in California have been in my mind because they're right in the area where my nephew lives. And I heard this wonderful Zen haiku: barn burnt down, now I can see the moon. So this extraordinary meditator and poet, in the midst of confusion, could find stillness, and in the stillness, an inner joy arising. Barn burnt down, now I can see the moon. I also turned to one of my favorite poems by the early non Kala. And I often contemplate this poem. All the world is on fire. All the world is burning. All the world is ablaze. All the world is quaking. That which does not quake or blaze, that to which worldlings do not resort, where there is no place for Mara, that is where my mind delights. So that same instruction coming through from the very earliest times that we met in the poem on the seven delights. But here, with the world on fire, burning, quaking, in the inner stillness, where there is no place for Mara. That is where my mind delights. So I want to go into this stanza just a little bit. That which does not quake or blaze. So that is a reference to our minds. Once our habitual patterns, once our afflictive emotions have been diffused and dissolved, the quaking and blazing stops. That to which worldlings do not resort. We think of what are the habits and patterns that lead to wisdom, and what are the habits and patterns that are so ingrained that take us deeper into samsara. So all those habitual patterns of escape and grasping something that gives us a false security. If I had enough money, if I had enough insurance, if I had private firefighters, if I had guards at the door, if I had, whatever, a pantry full of food, if I had 3 or 4 houses in different parts of the world that I could run to, all those habitual patterns that are just searching for security. If I, cover over the fear with whatever addiction, where there's no place for Mara. Now, Mara is a word that is a symbol or a stand-in for everything that is counter to enlightenment, boiled down to the 4 Maras. And one is habitual patterns of samsara. A second is the afflictive emotions. The third is a reference to the aggregates or a short life. So we have many habitual patterns that can shorten our life, as well as karmic seeds that might shorten our lives. And the fourth, which I love, is the Mara of the gods. In the God realm, they think their lives are so long, they're much longer than human lives, but they think their lives are so long that they procrastinate meditation. It also refers to distraction in meditation. So, where there is no place for Mara, that is where my mind delights. So how have we been approaching in this Sunday program the wisdoms that are referenced in this poem? We have just spent nearly a year on the 2 texts that lay out a roadmap for shamatha vipassana practice. So no matter what kind of meditation we're doing, our minds have to be stable, clear, and focused. And that sounds so easy, but it takes a lifetime, or it takes retreat, or both. So we have to put a tremendous amount of effort to become relaxed and focused, that wonderful combination of both relaxed and focused. We're confident in what that single-pointed focus means, and we're relaxed in the familiarity of our practice. And in these guidebooks that we've studied, we've looked at all of the obstacles, all the different kinds of restlessness, all the different stages of calm abiding. So we know well what the characteristics are of the fully at peace, calm abiding mind. And we know what stopping too soon might look like. We talked a little bit about vipassana. So with shamatha, with calm abiding mind, with a clear, focused, relaxed mind, that's like the boat we cross samsara in. And we encounter then with Vipassana, what is the awareness that is beyond conceptuality? What is this mind that constructs conceptuality? And that's, we might say, a very rational and logical investigation of the nature of the illusory obstacles, the veils that cover our innate awareness, our innate Buddha nature. Then another practice that is very experiential, but actually is working in the same way as a skillful means. With shamatha, we can do our bodhicitta practice, which is very experiential. What does it mean to have an open, relaxed heart? What does it mean to abide in non-differentiating loving kindness and compassion, ultimate kindness and compassion, or kindness and compassion mixed with the wisdom of emptiness? What is that? What is the path of understanding that? And what is the state of abiding? And so, with humility, we see the amount of time, experience, familiarization we need to give these foundational practices, and that although we call them foundational practices, they are at the same time the fruition experiences. So we're practicing shamatha or calm abiding in every meditation practice we do. We're practicing bodhicitta in every practice experience we do. Just if you look at the opening prayers, includes bodhicitta. And then there's the focus on bodhicitta that we're working with the next few weeks. So without calm abiding, we can't even identify what bodhicitta is as a felt experience, nor can we see the variation of strength of bodhicitta and the realization of our full capacity of bodhicitta. If our mind is restless and unstable, we're always coming and going. Bodhicitta for a minute, gone. Bodhicitta for a minute, gone. We're not really able to familiarize ourselves with it. And in this practice, the first stage is becoming familiar, and then the second stage is the pathway of expansion that leads to absolute bodhicitta. So as I said last week, it's recommended that meditators spend 2 weeks on just familiarization. And I'm not sure if you were able to touch base with this practice during the week, but I encourage you to do so, even if it's for a very short period of time, and continue with it in the week ahead. So the invitation starts with what is an accessible way to tap into the felt experience of a relaxed, open heart. And so for most people, that starts with calling to mind an experience that they've had. And in our day and age, most accessible is either the sweet little baby or toddler that's laughing and coming towards you, or the sweet little puppy or kitten that's laughing and coming towards you. Some experience where there's a natural response from your heart. If you're so fortunate to have a teacher and have been in the presence of the unconditional love of a teacher or a parent, that's another way to tap into that experience. But what we're becoming familiar with is not the memory, it's the abiding in the felt experience in an undistracted way. So, if you have another week to keep going with this, and you might be experimenting with, well, I can't quite get it here, I can't quite get it here. That's perfectly all right. Sometimes it takes a while, for someone to call to mind an experience that really expresses for them that undefended heart. And you can try a different one in the morning and a different one at night, or a different one every day. But the point is sticking then with the felt experience. And, as you go forward for the next rest of your life, you may feel the need to change the image, or you may find after a while that you don't need the memory anymore. You can go right to that undefended heart. But for today, we're going to rest in that undefended heart experience, and that becomes the skillful means that combines with shamatha. So from your experience in shamatha or calm abiding, there's an aspect of your mind that's noticing, have I left? Have I wavered? Did restlessness carry me away from that felt experience? Or did I forget the instructions and go off on a mental tangent? There's a sense of this felt experience becoming the object of meditation, and the awareness of the placement of one's mind and the continuous focus of one's mind being a skill that allows us to stay with that process of familiarization. And as we become more and more familiar, there's a depth growing. And not only is there a depth growing in the undefended, relaxed heart-mind, there's a filling that's like a fountain. So at first, we're filling from the memory. But as we become more familiar and more confident and more focused with our skill in staying focused and becoming completely focused, the closer we get to that focused mind, the more it allows an inner fountain of loving kindness and compassion to arise. So there is a continuum that starts with a memory to get the felt experience, then an abiding in that felt experience, then an arising fountain imbuing your whole heart-mind with that bodhicitta, and eventually that fountain becomes a beingness. There's no longer an experiencer or someone who is artificially accessing the open heart, but just a dwellingness non-conceptually in that wisdom, heart, mind of loving kindness and compassion. So again, starting simply, for many people, it will be a calling to mind, that gorgeous, innocent toddler, puppy, or kitten. For people who've been practicing this a while as part of their daily practice, in the Tuesday, Thursday class, we're often, over the years, working with this practice. So for those who are more familiar, going right to that undefended open heart mind that is becoming a stronger and stronger fountain, completely filling your whole presence with loving kindness and compassion. So we're going to stick with this for about 15 minutes. And begin. and close. So the meditation, as described, is accomplishing several things at once. So first, you might notice that it's actually a lot easier to focus on your breath. It's something that's more concrete. Watching it go in, watching it go out. You can feel it in your body. It has to stay fairly constant. You can't just hold your breath for 15 minutes. So the physicality brings you back in a natural way. So, all right, here is something that's more abstract and more nebulous. So you might feel, well, I'm not sure. I might need a little more time focusing on shamatha so that I can then bring that skill to something that is more nebulous. Or it was hard to remember the instructions, or I'm still very, very distracted. So then, like someone who's training for the Olympics, you're going to practice gym every day, and in a non-judgmental way, but in a evaluating kind of way. Wow, it's this one habitual pattern that comes up over and over again. Maybe I have to take some time to look at that one particular habitual pattern. Or I find myself falling asleep over and over again. So I might have to do some of the exercises that keep my mind alert and awake. Opening the door, drinking tea, and a third one that's often mentioned is clenching all your muscles tight. And that can have a tendency to wake you up a little bit. So at any rate, all the skills that you've brought to learning about the beauty and I'm going to say complexity, but I mean nuance and depth in shamatha, we then bring to this bodhicitta practice that focus on the felt experience of loving kindness. And one of the reasons why we're looking at this capacity to dwell in the felt experience and to know it in our bones is, essentially, what are we doing day to day? And if we want to do service, what are we doing? What are we bringing to service? So imagine you were facing a crowd and you're just handing out water, then you're just handing out water. If you're facing a crowd and looking every single person in the eye and opening your heart to them, they receive that. It's a felt experience for them to be seen. And so it's not so much what we do, but how we do it that we discover is really what meditation is building within. I had the good fortune to visit many of the great nunneries in Taiwan. And one of the places I visited was the Tzu Chi Foundation, their main nunnery. And this was founded by this extraordinary charismatic nun who makes service, active service, the focus of the whole Sangha, which now is an immense Sangha, but they started with just one hut. I'm looking, smaller than my little dining room area with 5 nuns in it. And early in their development, there was a huge fire at a factory. And what she told her nuns is, yes, there are people who are giving medicine, etc. I want you to go to the families and sit with them and listen to them. And so the nuns and lay people who were studying with her made it their practice just to go in the homes and listen to the heartbreak, listen to the suffering. And in the stillness of their hearts and the openness of their hearts, this is the presence of active listening that they brought to the families. And it was not once. She had them go back to the families many, many, many times. If you're, giving a bottle of water once, a jug of water, that water is gone by the end of the day. She had her students go over and over again. And one of the ways the Sangha developed was they really began to see what was the most crucial need in that particular situation. So she also supported the curiosity and intelligence of her Sangha. And so they invented a kind of compression fabric that could go over burns that was then used in all of the hospitals. So it was from visiting the families, compassionately listening to the families, in that process, seeing what was the most important unmet need, and then using the brilliance of their groups, inventing a solution to that need, always maintaining the incredible loving kindness. And they started many, many hospitals, and now they're larger than the International Red Cross. But I visited one of the hospitals, and at the shift change, everybody's in the main room, and they watch a Dharma talk, and then they sing. And so before they even go, from the lowest to the highest, the janitor to the surgeon, before they start their shift, they generate loving kindness as a practice and bring that to all of the patients. So it was really extraordinary to visit them. And when I say they supported the intelligence and curiosity, one of the things that struck me the most is they invented this powdered food that you don't need electricity for, that you can just pour water in and mix it up and it becomes nutritious food. And so I'm thinking of, the Katrina-like circumstances of people in shelters, and that there's no electric services, and even the tap water is unpotable in LA right now. But with this powdered food, just, you don't even need to heat the water. You can pour it and it makes a nutritious meal. But they showed us the factory where they produce the powder. And what was incredible to me was there was a young nun who hadn't even been to high school. And she was a natural engineer. And they pointed outside and they said, well, it was under that tree where she did her experiments. So she did all of these experiments of how to create this powdered food. And then they invented a factory to produce it. So there was this incredible trust in what the Sangha could co-create, and then bringing that beneficial endeavor worldwide. And then I may have mentioned before that a different person, I don't know who invented this, but there were these hard plastic like Lego system, the size of a normal suitcase. So let's say the regular suitcase they used to carry that was like 2.5 feet wide and 2 feet tall. So if you unfolded it one way, it became a cot. If you unfolded it another way, it became like a picnic table. So they invented and ship out these cots and food wherever there's an emergency. So I thought it was quite phenomenal, the work they do and the inner practice that they bring to the work that they do. So in this bodhicitta practice, first we have to know what this open, undefended heart is before we can bring it anywhere. So that's why we're sitting with this practice of identify the felt experience, fill up with the felt experience, then delve into the nuance and the vastness of this felt experience, then there's something to offer. So in the next 2 weeks, we'll be working with expanding that mind of loving kindness. But I encourage you to stick with this meditation for the next week, and as often as you can throughout your life, so that you're seeing more and more deeply into what is this nature of loving kindness, bodhicitta, that then, when it is mixed with our growing wisdom, actually becomes the wisdom nature of mind.